From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife.
The following is a rebroadcast of For the People. Come on, folks, we can do this up to $220 raised. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Keith Allen, Mr. and Mrs. America. Are you out there listening? It's Wednesday, August the 2nd, 2017, and it is going to be a great day today because we are doing something that I think is going to make a difference. It isn't that what we want to do with our lives is make a difference when we get up in the morning. That's just me. I'd like to be busy doing things that are productive, things that are fruitful. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be about, right? Doing things that bear fruit. And that's one of the reasons why we are doing something for the founder of this broadcast who is in a nursing home, has been there for a little over a year, bedridden in Gainesville, Florida. This is just beyond belief for so many people when I'm about to say what I've said before, but I have to kind of slow down, set this piece up. But imagine being a national talk show host, okay, just think about this for a second, with the prominence of being one of the most listened to people on the planet, literally, for talk radio. Chuck Harder, according to Talkers Magazine, was amongst the top 10 talk show hosts in America, next to Rush Limbaugh. I'm so serious. How does he end up in a nursing home? How does he end up staring at the ceiling? You think that he would have the best care attendants, that he would be able to die with dignity in his home? How is it that he's broke? How does that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened. It's a long story. Chuck dedicated his life to the consumer, For the People. Originally, before he got into politics, was a consumer advocacy type program, and it was featured, Chuck Harder's For the People, on 970 WFLA in Tampa Bay. It's still a big station owned by Clear Channel. And when Chuck did the show, Chuck would whistleblow. He would be looking out for Mr. and Mrs. America, as he would say, and I pass it down, and that's who we talk to every day. But there was a auto dealership that was ripping people off in Tampa, Florida, and Chuck told on them on the air on his show. Well, as you can imagine, that did not go over too well with staff and management of the radio station. And the reason being is the station was good friends with them, because they spent advertising dollars on the station. But Chuck had information that showed that the dealership was robbing people blind. They fired Chuck. But what Chuck did was he started his own radio network, and thank God he had some savings from his father that owned a factory many years ago, and spent a fortune on it, the Sun Radio Network. And unfortunately, that kind of imploded because there was a guy who was trying to take advantage of Chuck. Chuck was very trusting. You might know people like that. And Chuck went his way and ended up in a little town called White Springs, Florida, before he left his garage in Tampa, Florida, because that's where he really launched the network, in a garage, but moved from a garage to the Telford. And at the Telford Hotel, he started a 24-hour all-talk network called the People's Radio Network, PNI. People's Network, Inc. was the name of the company, but Chuck was on with the People's Network, I'd like to say, like at least 7-8 years. but grew into an amazing network that had conservative programs on way before Glenn Beck, way before these Dave Ramsey, and before any of these names. And stations ate it up, loved it. This is before all the big stations owned 100 stations, if you will. There were still stations that were owned by mom and pops, and Chuck was on over 350 radio stations, over 60 cable outlets, shortwave radio stations, 2 or 3 of them, high-powered. It was a pretty big deal, and the Order Center took in millions of dollars, except Chuck only took in a school teacher's salary at around close to maybe $30,000, $30,000, because he had a payroll to pay other talk show hosts, other expenditures. Oh, they sold books and sold tapes and things like that, but satellite time was expensive, airtime expensive on shortwave, and well, anyways, but he believed in the message about accountability, about making sure that Americans got the truth. They weren't lied to, like the fake news networks that they still peddle propaganda and lie to you and give you an agenda that's the furthest thing from being a conservative thought, because they're not going that direction. They're trying to spin their ideology, their mindset, on all of us. And so he was one of the original conservative talk show hosts that launched a network, and it was the first all news talk format, by the way, that was started in America. So anyways, how does a person go from that to ending up in a nursing home? And the answer is found on Google. You can type in Chuck Harder /silenced. And you can read a big article by WorldNet Daily that talks about how Hillary Clinton put the IRS on Chuck for 18 years and took the microphone from his prominent voice. And what did they find at the end of the 18-year audit? Nothing. He didn't do nothing, but they accomplished everything, the Clintons, they did, because Chuck was on them, on to Bill, Slick Willie. Oh, yeah. They hated him. They used to listen to Chuck's show from the White House. I had people tell me in the White House that they listened to it. I held in my hand from Hillary Clinton a letter back in the 90s to get Chuck off the air immediately. That kind of abuse of power, folks, caused Chuck's prominence to wane and lost his stations and lost income. And that'll age a person. And that's all he did since he was a teenage disc jockey in Chicago, in Elgin, Illinois, where he first started. A nice black man, as Chuck puts it, gave him his first job. But when you take something away from somebody, it's like you take a piece of their soul when you know that's what they do. And I think that everybody kind of has something they can contribute to this thing we call life here on planet Earth, that God gives us gifts. And Chuck had a gift to not just sound good on the radio, but had an amazing mind. And the kind of show that you could actually listen to for hours at a time. And he did a 3-hour show from 2 to 5 Eastern every day. And you could listen to 3 hours of the broadcast, and you would never get bored of listening to the show. Never get bored. And there was only one other talk show host that I was aware of that had that ability. And you might remember him. His name is Bruce Williams. And he was on TalkNet. And I could listen to him for hours and hours at a time because he was interesting, fascinating to listen to. And the information that was given and his take on the world was just unique. You liked it. It was neighborly, but it was a companion. And Chuck was that. But he educated, he informed, he whistleblowed, because he did it because it was right. When you speak truth to power, folks, you're going to take a lashing. Oh yeah, when you hit the right nerves. But Chuck thought that was the right thing to do. And by the way, you know who hit some nerves? Somebody you might know, Glenn Beck did, and he was on Fox News. Remember he had his program on the Fox News channel? Well, advertisers were dropping off like you wouldn't believe, and he lost his broadcast, and he moved from New York City to Texas. The Blaze and all that stuff is on a compound in Texas. He lives on a compound. Barricades himself in. Because when you call people by name, when you name the people that are doing this damage, and Chuck did call them by name, and connected all the dots, so you knew where it started from and where the buck stopped. But you knew all the players. And that was pretty fascinating stuff. So anyway, that's a consolidated story. I first met Chuck in New York City back in the early 80s when Chuck was on in New York. My dad put him on WMCA. He was doing a consumer show from his garage, and he was very successful in New York. He was invited to work for NBC, but Chuck didn't want to live in New York City, and they offered him a salary that was unbelievable. He turned it down, and he started his own deal because he knew that if they had control over it, they would be censoring him. Can you imagine NBC? He would be able to do what he did, and certainly did have an effect. And the reason they shut him down on the second election when Bill Clinton was to run for a second term, they took him off right there because they knew that he would have a major impact on the election, and they took him off just in time. But I saw what that did to him, and I see where he is today, and it breaks my heart because I wish I could do more for him. I have my own family, and I don't make a bunch of money with my other company. I do okay. Because it's not always about the money. It's about quality, right? Now, this broadcast, listener supported. So today we're raising money for Chuck for an iPad that only costs $799. I'm not asking anybody to do all of it, but some. If you can do more, that's great. At forthepeopleshow.com, if you could make a donation right now, I'd really appreciate that. But that'll bring some light into his nursing home room in Gainesville, Florida. He's at Signature Nursing Home in Gainesville. And we'd like to present him this gift of an iPad Pro like today. We'd like to do it today. We'd like to be done with this today. But this is going to continue running until we raise the money. So I am not doing any more broadcasts for the People until we can actually give him one of these. No more broadcasts. That's how much I believe in Chuck and what he did for America. That I cannot in right mind do anything more unless we can help him. Listen to the song.
Some people talk about forever, like it's a time that never comes. Hey, just like days we thought would last. Time goes by so fast. Tomorrow's come and gone.
Our lives are treasure that we're given, and every hour is ours to spend.